Hey everyone, this is Cameron Ward, the co-host and editor of Renegade Animation on RenegadePopCulture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to us. We are where podcasts can be found. If you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the wild world of animation. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And, of course, everyone's favorite Crazy Lemur, Bree.
I am so ready to cut my teeth on this.
But before we get there, I do want to acknowledge something that I neglected to mention last time. Our last episode was our 200th episode of this podcast.
Woo!
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's been a fun ride over these past 5 years, and we are nowhere near done. So here's to another 200 episodes down the road, and we're kicking off episode 201 with a big one. One that we've been building up to for a couple months now, like pretty much the beginning of 2025.
Yes, we are finally diving into the wild, wacky, deeply unsettling, and frustrating world of the animation fandom and why they are not great. Now, to be clear, some of these problems can be chalked up to accessibility, nonsense from the executives controlling everything, which that could be its own episode. And not everyone we are talking about in the animation, and this includes the anime fandom, are bad. We're not saying y'all should be exodiated off the face of the earth.
I mean, we're talking about the most annoying minority.
Yep.
Exactly. The bad eggs, the toxic ones, the ones who make being a fan of animation a chore. So, and it's funny because, like, we are currently watching the new season of The Owl House. I mean, not.
I mean, you want to start that again?
So, we are currently. God, I made the mistake off camera or off mic and doing it again. Okay. We are currently watching a multitude of things behind the scenes that include the new season of Has Been Hotel Season 2, and I've been rewatching some smaller animated features that the fandom would normally not even care about, which really dives into a lot of the big problems with the animation fandom. And there are plenty of bad fandoms. The overall comic book fandom can be awful. The movie fandom can be bad. Music, pop, just like any kind of media has its own bad faith fans, creatives, and YouTubers and such. But we're talking mostly about the animation fandom this time.
We'll start this first point, which is honestly probably the one we need to spend the least amount of time on, because most people outside of the animation fandom understand this point, but for those who are too in deep with this,
The ones that are terminally online and need to touch grass.
Yeah, this point is for you guys. Back in 2023, that award season, when Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio was up for all of the awards, he in his speech said something along the lines of, animation is cinema. And what happened is, on social media sites, mostly Twitter, that became less of, I mean, it is still a true statement, animation is cinema, but what happened is that phrase became a joke. It became a meme.
All because and we'll go into this with the next point, but it became less of saying, hey, animation old and new from around the world that is in the film feature scene deserve the same amount of respect that we give live action. And that means that animation should be up for the same awards for not just Best Animated Feature and Best Animated Short, Best International, Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Music, Best Original Score, like Best Screenplay, Best Picture. Instead, it became a hollowed out shield for people to partially justify the reason why they like Disney and Pixar movies. And poor The Mitchells versus the Machines got...
It never asked for this. It didn't want to be any part of this.
The amazing movie from Sony Pictures Animation got used as a meme template for the uncurious animation fans and YouTubers to be like...
Without irony, which is like the thing that makes it so sad.
Yep.
Like, go ahead, Bree.
So, you know what? I'm going to break this down in points, so I'm not rambling all over the place. But let's just talk about what is cinema actually. Cinema is a language. Like, it's not just a movie or something that's like, huh, that's epic, bruh! I'm so sorry. That was such a terrible cringy voice. But the point is that very well-meaning animation fans have this misconstrued view that cinema is just a visual aesthetic. And that is absolutely so far from the truth. And ironically, it reduces animation to what a lot of Hollywood and executives, especially here in the United States, try to do. You know, they're just reducing, a medium. Because when you tell a story, especially with animation, one of the questions usually asked is why? Why is this animated? Why are these characters doing these things? Why is this happening? So much of storytelling is just, why is something? And when you reduce that to, oh, hey, Across the Spider-Verse looks cool, and we're going to get pissy because it lost to a Miyazaki movie, that, not even just because it was Miyazaki, it was genuinely a better movie. This is Bree's hot take. I love Across the Spider-Verse, but it's clearly a part 1 of 2 versus the first movie, which is a clear story with a beginning and end that is conclusive, that if it ended right there, that'd be perfectly fine. And even if Boy and the Heron wasn't there, there were so many other better films that year. I'm sorry, that will hurt a lot of people, but I have to speak my truth.
Well, the thing is, actually, the Boy and the Heron versus Across the Spider-Verse thing is a perfect encapsulation for the second point, but the problem is, instead of being, supportive of animation with the animation as cinema thing, everyone kept just bringing up the same typical Pixar, Disney, and some occasional DreamWorks pictures. Like, yes, Up, Soul, and Inside Out are really good Pixar movies.
You're not forgetting the most important one that's always in, the 4 pictures that they bring up. Mutant Mayhem.
Mutant Mayhem. Yeah, TMNT Mutant Mayhem. And they're great movies. But then when you tell people, hey, maybe you need to branch out a little more and not just choose Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, and the occasional random Sony or US production side of things, fandoms get mad. They get vitriolic, defensive, and we're not telling you you're dumb for liking those movies. We're telling you, hey, it's not just the US side of things. And this kind of bleeds into our second point, that animation fans and YouTubers are incurious and unsupportive individuals towards animation, because with the animation as cinema thing, it gets turned into a joke that makes defending and justifying why animation needs to be taken seriously a harder challenge, because creatives who have YouTube channels that talk about animation and people who watch animation are going to constantly demand and cry about the fact that the US animation scene is stuck in this rigid box because of executive nonsense. And then when you tell them, hey, you know what? You can go across the world to see amazing animated films, old and new. It's not just Disney. Like, even during Disney's prime areas of the studio's life, some studios were making movies that were just as good or even better than what Disney were doing, like on a subjective level, mind you. Even like during like the 70s, like the rest of the world were making much better movies or taking more ambitious swings.
70s Disney was not good.
Like, yes, I like Robin Hood from that time period, but you know what movies I liked more? Johnny Corncob from, like, the two animated films that Miyazaki worked on before he founded Studio Ghibli with Animal Treasure Island and what was the other one? The Puss in Boots movie. And people are just like, well, I don't want to watch that. And it's like, well, why not? Because it's weird looking and it's not made by US animators. And it's like,
you know what? I have a perfect analogy. It's, like a little baby, like your little toddler that doesn't want to eat vegetables. Because it's literally the same argument.
You're not wrong.
The big problem is that even when, like, fans and YouTubers complain, like, isn't there anything original in this world anymore in animation?
And it's like, you could look right in the corner over there.
Yeah, like, look over there. It's like that one scene from Has-Been Hotel Season 2 where Lucifer's just like, quick, look over there! And it's just like, yes, there's constantly, like, amazing movies coming out, but because it's from Japan or not one of your precious US studios, you guys don't want to go see them. And yes, sometimes the lack of access can be extremely frustrating, especially right now with certain animated films from other parts of the world. Like, Light Chasers Animation from China makes some of my favorite movies from the end of the 2010s to now. They were behind like 2019's Whitesnake, 2022's New Gods Yang Jian, among other movies.
You know what? Can we actually just talk Whitesnake for a second? And, like, without naming names, people were, like, really fucking weird about that movie, and honestly, kind of xenophobic and racist.
That's a point I'll get to later when it comes to the fandom, but yeah, just another point to what Cameron was saying about fans being incurious and just unsupportive.
It's like, why do you think I go to animation as film? If you want to see the purest, truest definition of animation as cinema, you go to that festival. Because the world of animation is bigger than what the US is making. And even then, you could be extremely pedantic about, oh, this movie was made in the US. Or technically, if you want to be really accurate, Sony Pictures Montreal, which is in Canada. Or that's how people...
What is this Canada? What is a Taranto?
America's hat. Or, in this case... wear Canada's pants. So
yeah. Or I heard Sony has a studio in, let me put my glasses on, Vancouver,
Ontario. So sorry, Canada, you're catching strays with us right now. But the point is that a lot of the most creative, like, animated films are coming out from Canada. So depends on how you want to define US made and such. So, but that's not even like a jab at the Canada's animation scene. Canada's one of those places where, gasp, they actually support the arts and have art funds and grants and stuff. It's just more the fact that if you really like and want to see some original animation, you are going to have to get out of your little kid chair and explore the world of animation from the rest of the world, and not just like whatever weird forgotten concoction that you find out be like, oh, this will be perfect meme material. No, no. Like, I'll say this right now. Unless Zootopia 2 is freaking amazing, the only US made animated film that's in my top 10 this year is K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
Nothing else from the US has gone into my top 10.
Oh yeah, not even close.
Like, even like people will be like, not even like DreamWorks with The Bad Guys 2 and Dogman.
No one saw it.
Nobody
saw either of those films.
That's the thing. It's like you guys cry and whine about wanting films to look different, but then don't go see them. And then recently on Twitter,
Well, I mean, to be fair, with DreamWorks specifically, Universal's bullshit, like 28-day, like in theater exclusivity, is really kind of fucking them over. I mean, if we're just being honest.
Fair.
You're not wrong. There is a bit of a chicken before the egg situation happening with Universal. It's like we know about their like 20-day policy, so sometimes there are fans who are like, oh, well, I can just wait to watch it at home then. But then there are some examples like the Puss in Boots sequel, which, you know, did go on VOD a couple weeks later, but was still doing like okay in theaters.
And then we had, so recently speaking of DreamWorks, they announced a short that they were working on, and it looked really cool. It's got that faux stop motion feel to it with the CGI animation of a fun, different, like, pastel look, like art style, like colored pencil look to its CGI animation. And some dipshit posted, I'm gonna go back in time and stop Into the Spider-Verse from getting made because I'm so sick and tired of this art style now. And it's like, fuck you, buddy. Like, not even counting the implications of saying, I'm gonna go back in time and stop the animated film starring a non-white lead character and won Best Animated Feature and changed the entire animation landscape and going to make sure that we don't get that art style.
I mean, when you talk about, it's not even art style. You're talking about frame rates. You're talking about animation for reduced frame rate. Like, K-pop Demon Hunters does something similar, but you can't honestly say that that looks the same as the Spider-Verse films.
Oh no, absolutely not.
And that's the thing. None of these movies look alike. Like, if you're going by, like, a quick glance, maybe, but there's, like, Mutant Mayhem, the Mitchells versus the Machines, and, what was that Kid Cudi movie? Oh, Intergalactic? Yeah.
Yeah.
Those all do a different thing with their animation. It's not, like, Mutant Mayhem has a, like, more grungy 90s aesthetic, especially with, like, the imperfect head shapes and such. Like, none of the, like, 4 Mutant Ninja Turtles have the same head shape, which is, like, the point. It makes them stand out. Intergalactic feels like a pop art magazine ad. And then, like, Puss in Boots' Last Wish uses a more fairy tale painted look. And then K-pop Demon Hunters doesn't really do a lot of what the Spider-Verse does, because it just does a different frame rate with an appealing multimedia CGI art style.
Yeah, like, if anything, I kind of feel like K-pop Demon Hunters has kind of perfected whatever in-between framing tech that Sony has, that it feels more natural, even though that they're clearly not going a full 24 frames a second in a lot of the shots.
And then there's, like, the upcoming Goat. I would put that more akin to Mutant Mayhem than Spider-Verse, just because it's made by Sony. It has it's like a grungier Zootopia. And I just think that there's a difference. And for people to now start pushing back on that, it's like, man, now I want to go back to the things were done. And it's like, no, you don't.
No, it's like, everyone was bitching about the Shrek redesigns, which I thought they were great. Has anyone watched the original Shrek?
Like,
no.
No, you don't.
Which, by the way, like, because I remember this from the DVD commentary as a kid. The reason, like, in that first movie especially, that the characters look like that is because the rigs kept breaking. And that was, like, the top of the tech that they could do at that time. Technology's advanced a lot in, like, 25 years.
Exactly. You don't want to go back to the before times.
No, and especially, like, even though I love stuff like Shrek too, you can still see, like, the rigid limitations of what they could do. Like, when you got to Shrek Forever After, look at the amazing new HD textures that we're able to do. And it's like, man, those human looks are starting to look bad now, especially when they do, like, the realistic facial looks on the ogres and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, like John Hamm, Jane Lynch. It just didn't look good. And then there was that weird 2011 Puss in Boots movie. And I'm not calling the movie weird because it's bad or whatever. No, I think it's a fun movie. But it was a movie that was stuck in between the...
Yeah, like, it was, like, in that era of animation where, like, oh, we have to make everything so hyper-realistic. That was a bad time. Like, honest to God, like, I would prefer, like, the weird, clone children from, like, Toy Story 1 than, like, everyone was like, oh, look at how great our render engine is.
Well, it was during that time period where, like, the mid-2000s to the early 2010s, when they were really trying different art styles out, and they just weren't working out. Like, Monsters vs. Aliens tried to have a more caricature art style, but with the hyper-realistic textures of everything, it just didn't look good. And here it's just like, yes, we have to keep evolving with the way we are doing things with stylized animation, but we're also have to make sure that the people making those decisions and creative touches are paid well, because we've seen what happened recently with why the Spider-Verse movie is probably getting delayed multiple times because they need more time to work on it. So
yeah, it's not just Shamik Moore mourning the loss of Haley to Josh the Fire God Allen.
And then with the whole, like, Spider-Verse versus the Boy and the Heron thing, and this represents such a big issue with why they're so incurious. People got mad that a Hayao Miyazaki movie won Best Animated Feature over Spider-Verse, or how Shamik Moore infamously said it was robed, and that they got extremely racist about it. You're telling me you got mad enough to be xenophobic and racist towards one of the grand masters of animation because Spider-Verse didn't win?
And, like, not only that, but, like, Miyazaki is, like, as mainstream and normie of, like, an anime gateway as you could possibly get. That's not a diss against him. I'm just saying his films are, like, that popular.
Exactly. And then it's like, there were also films like Robot Dreams and Nimona in the nominee lineup. Would you have gotten really freaking weird about Spain with Robot Dreams? Like,
yeah, I know. Like, oh my God, I'm just thinking of Nimona one, which personally, like, that year, that was my favorite because, like, the whole, like, story, like, even if you don't know, like, all the production drama that happened,
just
like,
the story
the story
itself.
is so good. And you know what? It pisses me off that after that award season, no one talks about it, but that movie is still so good. I have my Signs poster, and I meant ND, and he helped me fix my copy of Nimona because it had his dead name, and I felt weird about it. So, shout out ND, you're cool. But I really have to rewatch that movie. Oh my God!
I know
Same.
we should just do a watch night of Nimona and Robot Dreams. Like,
we really should.
Like, that would be fun. But anyway, it's like a lot of you get extremely racist about foreign animation when it's like we tell you, it's like, hey, look, there are amazing films from Hungary, Spain, France, Belgium, and such, and then they're just like, yeah, but that's foreign animation. I want, like, ill. And it's just like,
Ew.
because of stuff like Lionsgate bringing over every cheap-looking direct-to-video animated film that they could.
The Pauly Shore Pinocchio, Jesus Christ.
But still, it's like, ew, animated film from Russia and China. Well, that's going to look cheap. Am I right, people? And it's just like, China has such a bountiful animation scene that you guys get extremely racist about it.
Yeah, I know. It's not like we don't have crappy low budget animation too. Like, have you ever seen like the Asylum's animation attempts? But I did kind of want to trace back to Nimona for just a sec. It's not even so much like the foreign thing. I'm just imagining what would have happened if Nimona won. Do you have any idea, like, what the worst kind of people it would have drawn out? And, like, if anything, I feel like it would have been even worse than, Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, because a lot of y'all would have been so mad that a film with queer themes won Best Animated Feature.
I'm just thinking about that particular group. You know the ones we're talking about. The ones who will make 50,000 videos about Brie Larson being bad. If Nimona won, they would have a field day.
But actually, this kind of touches on another point that I had, and I'll elaborate more on that later. Yeah, for a fandom, animation fandoms that claims to be progressive, left-leaning, caring about, blah, 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 progressive talking point. Some of y'all are the most fucking homophobic, racist motherfuckers I have ever met in my life.
Yeah. A lot of y'all got that racism and transphobia and homophobia on y'all, so just freaking woof from some of those comments.
And you know what? A lot of those comments are without irony for someone with a Steven Universe profile pick. Like, every single time, Steven Universe, a story that teaches tolerance, forgiveness, and dealing with adversity, has some of the most queer-phobic fuckers in the fandom, and I can never understand why.
It's like the irony is just completely lost on them. Actually, no, they don't even have a sense of irony.
And then there's like, even if you don't want to watch the foreign animated films that we constantly love and support on this podcast, I saw 2 smaller animated films recently, The Amazing Maurice and Stitchhead. Now, Stitchhead is an okay movie, a pretty solid little entryway for kids to get into horror, with its own little wit and charm of British humor. Like how one old lady villager holds up a sign saying, "Stitchhead makes me forget the dread and existential crisis of my existence." Or the Amazing Maurice, which has so much British charm because of it being based off of a story from Terry Pratchett. And how it's like, you know what? This is really cool and neat. Yeah, it's not the most visually stunning thing ever, but it's got a lot of kooky charm in its animation and characters to stand on its own and talk pretty positively about. I remember Mike and I were very heavily praising The Amazing Maurice when it came out.
Yes.
Because it was a January release title, and sometimes January doesn't put out the best stuff. And we were like, hey, you know what? This might be at best a 6 or 7 out of 10, but it's hella charming and I love it. So, and of course, shout out to the one scene where they introduce Discworld's most favorite character, Death, and his interactions with Hugh Laurie as Maurice. But even then, people will not go to that level or be like, oh, wow, this smaller animated film's actually pretty solid. It's not the best thing ever, but it's actually, like, give it a chance. They'll just be like, well, it's not Pixar level quality, so I'm not going to touch it. And it's like, well, how do you know it's bad if you don't watch it?
I remember, like, this was years ago. I made a post in Jerry Beck's cartoon research Facebook group, and I said something to the effect of, unless it's like a big mainstream animated movie or like something controversial, it feels like nobody actually cares about animation. And at the time, I remember getting a lot of pushback for that statement, but
even though it's objectively true.
Exactly.
Yes, because the reason why we know you don't care about it is because our next point. You guys don't know how animation works. Let's talk about some prime examples of this. So, the Super Mario Brothers movie from 2023. Okay movie. Not the best, not the worst. Made a lot of money. I understand why people find that frustrating, but also the fact that there was just nothing else at that time coming out. I get it. But some storyboards came out recently, and people were like, wow, this is the first time that I saw storyboards that were objectively worse than the final product. And it's like, storyboards aren't meant to be what the final product looks like, guys. They are made to get a point, an emotion, a scene across to the animators. And it was so funny because then everyone was like all the scuzziest.
Oh yeah, like full like clown show.
That the people doubled down on those bad takes. And even when they're like actual animators were calling them out, they were like, well, I know more than you, person who actually works in the industry. And it's like,
here's the thing. Like, and this is like kind of, I've mentioned this before. I think one of the worst things that happened to board artists is like everyone with like the animatics, they're too pretty. When you look at like Arcane's boards or like Japanese anime storyboards, or like I even pointed out, I think it was either the episode before this, Ryan Johnson's Knives Out storyboards, which is literally a stick figure.
Oh god. And
yeah, storyboards are not meant to be consumed by a general audience. They are specifically for the filmmakers.
It's a cookbook. It's like the ingredients. You're getting all your ingredients and you're getting ready to cook. As long as you can follow the recipe card, you're fine.
I remember when everyone got excited about the full animatic storyboards of the canceled Popeye movie coming out. And everyone was like, oh my god, we're going to see what it looks like. And now all I can imagine is people going, ew, maybe this is why it never came out.
I hate how right you are.
And then it's like people got really stupid because they're like, wow, look at this Disney Channel looking garbage with the storyboards. And it's like, gee, it's possibly not because someone who worked on Amphibia and Big City Greens worked on those storyboards. No, sir. It's not like everyone who works in the animation industry doesn't absolutely work at every single freaking studio on every single project. No, what a mystery. Why would you see someone who's worked on Amphibia doing storyboards for an Illumination project? Because animation's a job. And you're just going to use what experience and style works for you to get a storyboard done. It's not that hard. It's not rocket science.
I mean, Cameron, for these people, it might legitimately be.
Well, then the education system has failed us more so than ever before. And that's saying something. And then recently, where supposedly the budget came out about Chainsaw Man, the movie Rezaark, where it was apparently, it cost only $4 million, which I find that extremely hard to believe, except for a few contextual reasons. And some famous anime YouTuber came out of the woodwork to vomit out, saying, like, 2D animation is actually cheaper than CGI animation. Like, no asterisks, no full sense of awareness of why that may be. And I don't think enough people who work in the animation industry dunked on him enough. I think he truly needed to be put in his place.
Yeah, the Kendrick Lamar bitch be humble moment.
Yes, because animation is not cheap no matter if it's 2D or CGI. You don't know how it works.
No, you don't know how it works. And then I did research today and I put it in our group chat. So, out of curiosity, because I knew it was one of the more expensive films of the Disney Renaissance before you kind of get into the later half of it, but The Lion King, 1994, the only version of that story that will ever exist, other than the Broadway musical. No other versions exist. But in 1994, and of course this is including, the extensive marketing campaign, tie-in promotions, all that stuff, the production budget of The Lion King was $44 million in 1994. I did the math, and that's about like $100 million today. The Lion King, like 30 some odd years ago, costs more money than the average Illumination movie.
And why do Illumination movies not cost an arm and a leg and a torso and maybe a few sacrificial goats free?
Latex credits.
From France, baby. That's why a lot of Illumination animation is done in France. That's why it sometimes has a very French way of movement and comedy and all that jazz. With Chainsaw Man, it's like, okay, maybe MAPPA does pay more, like above the average salary of animation jobs across the board for the anime industry. That's still not a lot. They are still being heavily underpaid to the point that I think the only studio that can actually give their animators a living wage and proper time and production to work on everything, even when they still do the anime shortcuts, is KyoAni.
I was gonna say, especially after everything that they've been through, with the arson and everything, like that's still one of the better places that to work at.
They are able to pay and not grind their animators into the ground. And let's not even forget, MAPPA was forced the team behind Jujutsu Kaisen 0 4 months to make that movie. 4 months. That's not a long time, buddy. Even in 1979, when Miyazaki was working on the Castle of Cagliostro, 4 months. It was lucky to look at and be as iconic as it was. But you could tell when they just said, limit the animation here, we gotta focus on here and here for the animation budgets. The anime industry is paid way less than the animation industry here in other parts of the world.
Because we have unions.
Exactly. Unions help protect animators from us not entering into an anime industry style nightmare cycle. To where the anime industry's response to its lack of artists is not, well, maybe we need to stop pumping out 60 titles every 3 months and pick projects that could actually be successful to us, is we're going to use AI.
And not only that, but there's so much outsourcing. If you look in the credits, you will see, probably more so than ever, a lot of non-Japanese names. You'll see Chinese names, Korean names, or American names.
Especially the fact that some American animators will just show, hey, here's the clip I worked on for, One Piece. It's gotten to the point where even, Toei realized that if they want to keep up the amazing stretch of animation that they've been doing with One Piece, they can't be making One Piece the way that they've been able to for 2 or so decades now. Almost 3 decades. It's not possible, buddy. And it's just a lot of you don't understand how things work. And it's even more annoying when they are animation YouTubers, not people who make animations, but people who talk about animation, just spewing nonsense and just really toxic things that, by the way, if you are trying to use your animation YouTube channel to break into the industry, you better be careful with what you say online then. Because animators will bookmark, screenshot, and remember what you say. And I think that's why the person who complained about the storyboard arts finally took down their post, because they apparently say yeah, I'm working in animation. And it's no, you aren't anymore now.
Yeah, nope.
Because why do we want to work with you when you're going to call us lazy? Fuck you.
And unsupportive. This is life in general advice. Don't shit on people, especially if it's the animation industry, because you give the vibes of a scab. No one will hire you or want to work with you.
Oh, and let's get to the other major point of why animation fans and YouTubers don't understand how animation works. The indie animation scene. Yes, we have talked about it multiple times, but because of recent indie animation stuff that has been going on, including the fact that Has-Been Hotel Season 2 has been coming out, and by the way, here's the hurtful reality of it all. Hell of a Boss and Has-Been Hotel are no longer indie animated shows.
They have become the Green Day of the indie animation scene. They have left Gilman Street and have gone to the big leagues.
And I don't even fault them for it, because the economic realities is that indie animation it's very hard to sustain. That even if you are successful, like a Vivian Medrano or whatever, and the recent news that Spindlehorse voluntarily recognized the union, there was just absolutely no fucking way merch sales and YouTube views were going to make Hell of a Boss especially sustainable.
There have been a lot of animators venting online about the fact that a lot of people, yes, I get it. The indie animation boom, like bubble, basically popped already. It popped when The Amazing Digital Circus came out. And everyone wants to make their indie animated series now. Well, you better have money, or you better kickstart that shit, and you better learn how animation works, because nobody's going to want to work for you for free when it comes to animating something. They want to be paid for their time. Why do you expect people to not be paid except for exposure and experience doing something as time-consuming and challenging as animation?
Especially if you think you want it to look as good as something like The Amazing Digital Circus. Like, you're not going to accomplish that by without money.
No,
you can't make animation based off of vibes.
No. And that's why it's been so good to see, like, I know one recent pilot came out, I think like the 3 tomes or something like that.
Oh yes, Bree, which is, this is a personal story. At one point I was in a Discord server with Bree, and I actually saw like a very early version of that and gave notes. So it's kind of amazing that it's finally out now.
But it looks like it's mostly animatic stuff, which is fine with me. Because Pretty Please, I Don't Want to Be a Magical Girl was a full-on animatic pilot. Not even like 30 minutes, it was like 10 minutes. And it was still one of the most successful pilots in the indie animation scene. And it's like, so look, you can just do animatics. You don't even have to do full animation. And it's like, well, what about that one scene in Pretty Please, I Don't Want to Be a Magical Girl? Like, that's an exception to the rule. Someone came to the creator of that and said, can I animate this one scene for you? And it's, again, mostly rigs, like a rigged animation, which doesn't take a lot of time to do. It cuts down on time. And listen, I get it. You want to have that fluid, juicy animation of a Disney production in your indie pilot, but that's not possible if you don't have the money and time and talent for that
but
to happen.
But even so, like, rigged animation is way more intricate and harder than people think. Making rigs is fucking, like, I've tried rigging. It is painful. I would rather put bamboo shoots under my fingernails, and rig artists do not get paid. Whether it's 2D or 3D, they do not get paid enough for what they do.
That's the thing. When everyone says, like, rigged animation is cheap looking, it's like, you know what? They probably didn't have the budget at the time to make it look good. And a lot of times we're probably using rigged animation, but they were able to do really cool, expressive stuff with the models and such. So, shut up.
I mean, like, the Ghost of Molly McGee and, like, Tangled, those are rigged shows, and they look fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
I think even, like, Hilda and Glitch Tech used rigged animation. And I'm sure to some degree, like, a lot of, was it Flying Bark Productions? The ones who do, like, Glitch Tech, the TMNT cartoon and such? And
yep.
I think they use a mix?
Yeah, like a mix. Like, you could do that. The Lion King used CGI simulation animation in
94. Sorry.
Was used. The point is, they were mixing and matching stuff because they knew it would take way too long to do one scene, like the Stampede scene with 2D animation. And I know
the way they do it, this was actually years ago. I actually talked with Ed Gertner. He was one of the guys who worked on The Lion King. He's also worked on The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Guy has, like, long credentials. So, just for context, like, with The Lion King, you don't have After Effects. You don't have Maya, so you had to take, like, graph paper and like manually track all that stuff. You have to cell shade all that. But you know what? The results speak for themselves. That shit still looks great like 30 plus years later, and you cannot tell it is CG. Like, if the effort's in there, like, who cares how you get it? Like, as long as the visuals are executed, like, and the artistic vision is maintained, who cares?
Exactly. And this kind of goes back to what we said about how animation fans don't understand how animation works. So if you don't really know what goes into something like rigging, but you enjoy shows like The Ghost of Molly McGee and other Flying Bark productions, like, then it doesn't matter how those shows were made, as long as, like you said, Bree, the results, they speak for themselves.
And it's like, yes, sometimes there's cheap looking CGI animation. That's because something like a Vanguard animation project doesn't have the budget or time to make it look good. Like, there are probably talented people working there. And the only reason why something like that Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo movie, the one that made Velma canonically gay and likable for the first time in like 20 years, was as good as it looked, was because it had talented people like Dan Haskett on the project. And that they were able to get a studio that could take the time and had the talent to do expressive animation for a Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movie. And sometimes some amazing theatrically released foreign animated films get stuck on direct-to-video. That's not a sign of quality. Deep Sea was one of the best movies of, I think, 2023. And that movie had some jaw-dropping CGI animation from China. But since it got picked up by Viva Kids, it's like it's got the possible stink of ew, bad animation because it's direct to video on it. And it's like, no, no, honey, no, yeah, no. It's a time, talent, and money thing. It doesn't matter if it's CGI, rigged, pure 2D animation. It's also because like a lot of animation fans love, and I mean love, to glaze, and I mean heavy glaze. People
like a donut.
Yeah, like a donut. Richard Williams, who, yes, his animation is amazing. It's one of a kind, jaw-dropping, and wonderful to look at. He lost his career because he couldn't follow a deadline, especially with that last project. And listen, it sucks. I get it. Studio systems suck. But dude, I'm sorry. You gotta find a compromise in some way, shape, or form. Or else they're gonna kick you off. And it's not like, to be clear, I'm not saying Richard Williams is a John Kaye situation, because that's nobody wants.
No, that's an entirely different discussion.
Yeah. Richard Williams is a guy who wanted to do what he wanted and break out of the confines of an animation industry that was in a really bad spot when what was the movie he was making before he passed away and couldn't finish it?
The Thief and the Cobbler?
Yeah, that. And then it got taken from him and made into an entirely different beast. And yes, the uncobbled cut is amazing because you get to see all that hard work. But it's also like just a vibes movie, which aren't bad. There's a lot of good ones. But that's not the end-all be-all of animation quality. Just because something is fluid doesn't mean it's an A-plus quality movie. I've seen plenty of amazing animated films from around the world that have garbage stories. Hell, anime does that a lot from time to time. They'll adapt something or do a particular story where they'll have amazing animation, and then the story just doesn't rise up for the occasion and such.
Or even, like, because we've said this in our indie animation talks, like, one of the constant issues with, like, indie animation is, like, there's, like, whether it's between you have, like, a creator who's an artist and not necessarily a storyteller, or you have people, like, so focused on, like, the world building, lore, and like the visual style. And, you know, they are like dead set. They're like, oh, this pilot's gonna blow up. It's gonna be great. You know, we're gonna get a bunch of episodes, you know, in a movie, blah, 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 blah. And then they don't end up telling like a good, conclusive story to sell us on like, hey, you should watch more of it. And people would be like, well, that was neat. And then that's it.
That's why so many indie pilots are like, end up resulting in nothing. Because they spend so much money and realize, shit, I'm out of money. This better be a hit. And then it's not. And they're like, well, I guess that's it.
It's about managing your own expectations. Like, you can't, as much as I commend the ambition, you also have to think practically too when you're doing these indie pilots.
That's why I remember one animator who worked in the industry suggested, like, hey, listen, if you want to do animation for your indie pilot, maybe copy what Hanna-Barbera was doing. Which is perfectly fine. I know a lot of people love the shit on like stuff like the Hanna-Barbera legacy of animation because of the limited frame rates and like clunkiness and cheapness of it all. But it was still like hugely effective and funny stuff.
And it was profitable, most importantly.
And we're not saying that it's like, I mean, yeah, that's why that style existed for so long. And then there were like those people who are like, well, what about those Looney Tunes shorts and the Tom and Jerry shorts? Those look amazing. And it's like, those were made for the theatrical animation release. They were not made for TV. They only started to be put on TV because they were easy to license and to show for kids in batches of like 5 to 10 shorts over a span of 30 minutes. It's so mind-rotting to see just the uncurious people out there who who think they know better, but they don't. Y'all don't. That's why I've started saying we don't know what happened. It could have been a bad production pipeline. It could have been ambition that was cut short. It could have been just a lack of talent for some reason. It could be a multitude of reasons why an indie pilot doesn't go anywhere or why a show or movie looks like it does. And the biggest thing is, the people who work in the animation industry are perfectly aware when they are working on something that's not going to be a fully fun project to work on. Even like stuff like the amazing, ambitious, and industry-changing Akira had little areas where animators would frustratingly put down a small little joke or jab or like F you to Tezuka. No, not Tezuka. What's the guy's name? Otomo. Katsuhiro Otomo. Like where they said like, screw you, Otomo, this is so pain in the neck. We can't do this in our production pipeline. And he's like, well, you're going to. Of course, there are obvious multiple anime series where people who are working on it put in like, please help. I haven't slept in 3 days. And
or even in the Chainsaw Man movie where they literally blow up the Mappa building.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love that.
Really educate yourself. If animators online or like whether it's Twitter threads, Blue Sky threads, or YouTube videos or conferences are talking about how animation works, you listen to them. Because if you ask them nicely, they could probably tell you respectfully what exactly happened. Instead of being like, what the hell, man? Like, this thing turned out to be crap. What happened? Did you guys go lazy? And it's like, no. We got studio noted to death and had our production pipeline cut by the ankles and had a year taken off.
That's literally what happened. Like, this is kind of sort of, it's not animation, but it's animation related. That's why Catch 2019 looks the way that it does. So, like, because Tom Hooper is a fucking idiot. He didn't want to use mocap suits because they might be inhibitive. And they had to guess where all the motion trackers were. So, yeah, of course that teaser trailer looked like shit. And then Universal got cold feet. It's like, oh, fuck. And, like, cut, like, so much of the funding. And that's why, like, Cats had to be day one patch with, like, floating heads and hands.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it happens, okay? Nothing has a perfect production pipeline, especially with some of your favorite movies. Ratatouille had an infamous production change when the original director walked out because he had no faith in the story department. And then Brad Bird had to get brought on to save the project. And it turned out to be great, even if there are elements feeling like they're clashing because it's two different projects shoved together.
But Ratatouille still, I feel like, is my favorite classic era Pixar movie.
Oh no, it's still amazing. It's wonderful. But it's also a miracle that the problems that plagued stuff like Brave and The Good Dinosaur were not visible in something like Ratatouille, despite the change in direction and such, or director and what have you. So it's just deeply frustrating that there are fans out there who don't want to know how the production side of things is handled, and that they think, well, I talk about animation, that means I can animate a pilot. No, you can't. Like, that's the thing. But I assume, like, some people who like our podcast are going to be like, well, you guys complain about these things. Why don't you make your own pilot? I don't want to.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've written a couple pilots. I have one long-term project, but here's a little bit of the tea. Especially if you're, like, looking to do series development. If you're, like, indie or if you're looking to pitch for a studio, don't get married to your ideas. Because people are, like, overly ambitious. They're like, I'll script out the entire story. And I'm like, that's a waste of time. You're gonna have to fucking throw most of, if not all of it, out. Because the nature of development and, like, storytelling is fluid. Something that you are convinced, like, you will stand on your soapbox, you will die on that hill will work. And then you work with the story and you're like, huh, this doesn't actually work. Fuck, I have to rethink things. Like, that happens more often than people think. And it's one of the reasons why I'm actually in the process of writing a feature. Because if you're trying to do a series, like, if you're trying to develop it, you can't really, at that point, you can kind of have an idea of where the story will go, but you can't write out an entire story from beginning to end. And personally, like, I want to be able to tell a story from beginning to end, so that's why that's of interest to me. But so many times projects fail because fans don't understand that, and then, oh, this is a little other side tangent. One of the things that kind of grinds my ass on Indie Animation Day is you'll see a lot of, not everyone, most of the projects are legitimate, but you will see, like, animation fans, say, oh, this is my indie animation project, and act like, it's a high school project you're working on with your friends. I'm like, no, that's not how that fucking works. It's not how that fucking works at all.
It's tiring. And then we get to pretty much our last big point of why the animation fandom is bad or problematic and troubling.
Oh, yes. The magnus opus of shit.
So, a lot of you are toxic, parasocial weirdos who do not understand boundaries, respect, and you do not touch grass. You are terminally online. Your hands are glued to your keyboard like some Junji Ito horror story. And you do not deserve respect or support if you are going to be doing stuff like what some of you say and do. And a lot of you decide to harass, send death threats, and dox people over a stupid cartoon. And not just animation fans, but content creators as well. Like, I'm sorry, if I did some of the things that y'all would do, I would delete everything social media. I would be so embarrassed because once you do something that is so, like, beyond redemption and fixing,
it's degenerate behavior. Let's just call it like it is. It's fucking degeneracy.
Like, I would go and move to a cabin in the woods and learn how to wood carve because there's no coming back from that. And I know some people have worked and fixed their personal image and persona, especially among content creators. But I'm sorry. I'm still going to remember you as the person that said Sony Pictures should drop dead because the Emoji Movie was made. Even though the Emoji Movie basically had a 2-year production cycle. And hey, you want to know something even wilder? The award-winning movie of this year, Arco, that has been taking festival awards left and right this year, it was all done. The animation was all done within a year. But only because, with the asterisk being, we worked 3 to 4 years on pre-production and knowing what we want our shots to be. Gee, a very James Gunn way of doing something, and yet they were still able to make one of the most beautiful, vibrant, heartfelt pieces of art of this year. And they had 150 people over a span of a year make the animation. That's wild to me. That is amazing. But yes, I'm sorry. I know you've worked on cleaning up your image. You're still forever going to be known as the person who said Sony Pictures should drop dead because of the Emoji Movie. You're still going to be known as the person who said Turning Red is bad because it didn't reference 9/11, or that you sent a parade of harassment towards SpongeBob writers because of one bad episode, or the fact that you're known as a weirdo, like furry fetishist, and do not treat foreign animation with respect, and yet you want to be the king of animation, YouTube, when you don't really deserve it. It is weird, and some of you guys, not just like creators and fans alike, they see that stuff. If you try to sign up and work in the industry with them, they're going to be like, why do we want to work with you when you sent a death threat to us? Why do I want to work with you when you went on some deranged meltdown? Why do I want to work with you? Because you doxed me because I made a cartoon. Unless I made something extremely hateful, bigoted, racist-fueled, like, conservative propaganda nonsense.
Or pedophilia. Like, actual, like, pedophilia stuff, like, legitimately, like, horrific shit, not just, like, weird shipping art.
Like, there's something wrong with y'all. Like, there is just something wrong with a lot of y'all, and I understand that we all work differently, and that there are things that maybe cloud our judgment a little of what we say, or think like, hey, I'm going to type this out and there's no repercussions that I can see happening from it. But there's no excuse. A lot of you need to get off the internet.
And this is my thing, like, people have always been mean, but I feel like there's more of an incentive or like a high to be a fucking jackass because, the clicks, the algorithm is bullshit. Like, so much of this, like, number-wise, when you actually break it down, is fucking bullshit. So I'm like, why are you doing this? What advantage do you get to being a horrible, despicable, reprehensible human being that you just see these people? You don't even see them as people. You just see the cartoons. You treat your cartoon characters and your fictional ships better than the people who fucking make them.
One other point that I think is important. I think we've mentioned this a couple times, how certain individuals in this fandom kind of they treat their mental illness as an excuse to do or say, like, just the worst heinous things, but because they're on the spectrum, they think they can get away with it.
And you know what? I think, Mike, are you in the spectrum? I know me and Cameron are.
I think I'm somewhere in the neurodivergent umbrella.
Okay.
I got
ADHD,
guys, so...
Hey, high five! But anyway, to be on a serious note, people treat ADHD as weird. Because to me, my ADHD is, and I take my meds, it's basically like taking insulin. I have a brain chemical imbalance. I am not some weird savant. I'm not, a weirdo with, like, fucking Sheldon Cooperisms. I am a 33-year-old woman who just needs to take pills to be able to function appropriately and live my life. And some of y'all use as a crutch And after all the personal bullshit that I've been through that I'm not going to divulge into, I'm like, how dare you? How dare you fucking use that as a crutch to be a fucking jackass, to be a petulant fucking child? I understand that maybe you have a hard time mentally grasping it, but the fact that you don't even try, the fact that you're just like, well, why should I try? I'm neurodivergent. I have autism. I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you. You want to be treated like everyone else, but you want to act like you're this, like, special alien that just can't play by the rules of everyone else? You are the worst kind of person.
It's the fact that, like, yes, I do not like films like Norm of the North. It was a bad idea for Lionsgate to put it in theaters. It was absolutely not ready to play with the big boys. But my hatred for that is not at the animators. Or something like the soccer football movie. I don't hate the guy who made Angry Beavers for directing that movie. It's a job. It just was weird and didn't really work out. It's just an executive level thing of, like, you shouldn't have done that, executives. Because now it's like you hurt your reputation as a studio. Like, yes, Norm of the North got forced into theaters because of one reason or another. Well, yes, I understand that. It is still playing with the big boys, so it's going to be treated like a big boy.
Yep.
But my anger doesn't go into the animators. It's like, it's whatever, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It was a bad, mediocre story that was the worst animated film of 2016, but it stops there. I don't wish ill will on the animators or the people who had to work on it, except for Rob Snyder, because he's a literal, terrible human being.
Oh yeah, no, just fuck Snyder all day, every day.
It's the fact that, like, we'll do things because a ship didn't work out. Or, like, something personal to you was not responded to by the show creators. And there's two sides of the, well, if you don't like what they did, make it yourself, like, argument. There are, like, it's a good way to know what these people are going through by trying to make your own projects. But also, it's like, shut up.
And also, just to kind of, like, catch up on that, what you were saying with, like, ships and stuff, it's not even just to, like, creatives or, like, staff that work on these shows, but to, like, other people in the fandom. You don't realize, like, the harm your words do. Like, classic example of this, Legend of Korra shipping, and the absolute fucking meltdown, like, full fucking crash outs over Korrasami happening. Which, mind you, because I was there the weekend that it happened, and I literally cried. Like, I didn't, like, even, like, hardship, like, Korra and Asami. I just thought they were, like, kind of cute. But that ending made me cry. And then I had to ask myself, why is this making me feel this way? And then that was kind of like the, oh shit moment for me. I'm like, I don't think I'm straight. Like, for me, that meant a lot because that was a pivotal moment in my life. And let me tell you, on Tumblr, I have never seen, like, it was worse than Twitter. Like, I'm comfortable saying it. It was worse than Twitter. I have never seen so much homophobia, biphobia, sexism, racism than I have ever seen in my life. And especially if someone who's, like, questioning their sexuality, the level of biphobia is saying, oh, bi people don't exist. Why is Korra or Nasami, why are they suddenly lesbians? And, oh, bi people are just, fucking slut monsters. They're not really people. They're not really gay. You don't understand over fictional fucking characters the damage that your words do.
A lot of y'all get so attached, and I understand having that hyperfixation. I have my little hyperfixations about certain shows and movies all the time. I had to basically rip myself away from King of the Hill for a little bit because it was the only thing that I was able to connect with people's, like, stories with. Because it's like, oh yeah, King of the Hill talked about that thing. And it's just like, it's cool, they didn't mind it, but to myself, I was like, I gotta break away, man. And I did. And it's like right now my little obsession is with The Amazing Maurice. Like I'm thinking I'm going to just buy the art book to read up about it. But it's like, grow up. Like realize that your antics and actions have consequences. Why should I go work in animation if all I'm going to see on Twitter is people bombarding me with death threats because I worked on a movie with a poop emoji voiced by Patrick Stewart? Why should I work on a beautiful, loving, romantic comedy anime because you guys didn't like the end result of the ship? Why should I work on something like Steven Universe, which was breaking ground of queer representation, because all I'm going to see is some loser YouTuber make a 5-hour video essay being wrong, 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 and then realize, oh, they're terminally online and mentally unwell. They're going to dox me, send death threats, and send their weird tribe of conservative puritanical monsters after me because I dare say, you don't know what you're talking about.
Not only that, most of that video was plagiarized from other articles, but that's an argument for another day.
Like, bug off. A lot of you suck. Not all of you. Some of you are amazing people. Some of you are sweet, kind fans who just love and want to just see cool things. Some of you are not. And y'all need to do better about keeping those bad eggs out of the system. I don't care if you didn't like the ending to Legend of Korra, the ending to Mass Effect 3, the ending to Steven Universe. There are reasons why that stuff happens. And it's not the people working on the game, the movie, or the show's fault. It's usually a higher up thing that gets everyone else working below them in trouble. If you're going to be mad about something, be mad at something reasonable, like the horrifying working conditions in the anime industry that's keeping budgets down and paychecks down, where no one gets any of the profit off of successes like Demon Slayer Infinity Castle or Reze Arc, the Chainsaw Man movie. Or the fact that we're in a current US animation scene where the studios are so butthole clenchingly afraid to invest in something unless it has IP brand recognition. And now that a lot of animators are still out of work because of that nonsense.
Like, I have had friends that have recently had projects canceled, and like, I've had friends that have been out of work for close to a year now. Like, the industry is in like such a horrific state right now. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, shit's bad right now.
And all you guys want to complain about is, oh, there's a Harley Quinn fart comic. Who cares? It's a shitpost comic. Like, who cares? There are real problems in the animation industry right now. Like, that aren't stupid fandom bullshit. Like,
and I think this leads to our final point in this whole the problems we have about the animation community. Too many people in the community have attached their identity to animation and literally nothing else.
Guys, I love animation. I watch a lot of it. I also watch a lot of TV and live action stuff. I read books. I read art books. I read comic books. I watch live action dramas, comedies.
You travel. You touch grass.
I literally have other hobbies and interests. I love to cook. I love to swim. I love animals. I do not just inhale animation 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 a year. There are some days where I'm just like, I don't want to watch anything animated. I want to watch a food competition show because that is my comfort zone and happy place. When I can watch Tournament of Champions every year. Or Culinary Class Wars, which I think is getting a second season in December, and I am freaking excited. So, yes, there are amazing things happening in animation. But a lot of the reasons why those amazing things are happening is because the creatives are pulling from entirely different sources.
Yeah, like, if you just have your entire media diet just on animation, you're doing a disservice for yourself. Like, there is so many influences. Like, I'm in a writing mentorship, and one of the hardest questions I had, like, not even the writing the scene, but the hardest question for me was, what are your inspirations? And the reason that's hard for me to say is because, like, the entire world around me is, like, my inspiration. Like, I find random rabbit holes or, like, things that I've seen, like, that inspire. I can say in full honesty that maybe subconsciously, but not intentionally, like, a specific series or book or whatever inspires my work. Like, I've written, like, a pilot and got the theming by being in traffic in Philadelphia and seeing Greek architecture and be like, huh, that could be something. Like, you could find inspiration for anywhere, and the fact that you just limit yourself, like, oftentimes to 6 to 11 baby shows on, like, the big 3 children's network, and yes, I'm sorry, like, I know you can be an adult and enjoy the shows, but stuff like Amphibia, The Owl House, The Loud House, anything Cartoon Network, those shows are aimed for kids 6 to 11. I'm not saying that you have to be a child to enjoy it, and there aren't adult themes, but let's be honest, they are shows for children.
It's just, and that's the thing. Yes, I like those shows, but it's also because the writers were given enough freedom to tackle adult thematic elements that you really couldn't do back in the day. Like, for example, I remember rewatching Samurai Jack and being like, the last episode of season 1, where Aku is trying to tell bedtime stories to a bunch of kids who are Samurai Jack fans. It's like, okay, I don't really get the idea of this episode. It has my least favorite jokes, and it's not really all that interesting because it all takes place pretty much inside Aku's lair for the whole episode. And then you rewatch it later, and you start to pick up on, like, oh wow, this whole episode's about how evil people will try to force propaganda down their throats to breed a new generation of hateful individuals. There's a reason why, like, Samurai Jack is what it is, or like why Chainsaw Man or Cowboy Bebop are flavored as they are. It's not because they watched cartoons and based everything off of cartoons that they liked. There's that infamous story about Craig McCracken and Genndy Tartakovsky when they started working at Cartoon Network on their own shows, where Genndy went down to the vault, watched a bunch of Hanna-Barbera shows, and then had to stop because he realized that a lot of them don't age well or weren't that good. And then Craig had to basically tell him, buddy, make the show that you think your childhood shows were like. Like, I remember doing that. I remember going through a bunch of shows I grew up on as a kid and rewatching them and being like, no, young me, these were bad. And then rewatching some other shows and being like, oh wow, look at this Art Deco American Western thematic, like, storytelling of something like The Big O or Cowboy Bebop. The Chainsaw Man intro is basically the director and taking the manga author's characters and shoving them into famous movie scenes. Like,
yeah, and also episodes of Cowboy Bebop are named after popular music from the 70s throughout various decades.
Don't even get me started on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's weird and absurd, and then you're wondering, wait a minute, why is that character called Aerosmith? And it's like, buddy, the creator liked Italian fashion and rock and roll music. That's why there's a character named Ario Speedwagon.
The creator is also a vampire, because that's the only explanation.
Yeah. Like, there's a reason why one of the most famous visual looks of an anime character was based on a French prince, if I recall. Like, and like, you know that look, that Bisojo, like, pretty boy
Or like Tezuka style, which is basically Disney.
Yep.
So you can't just base your entire identity on a fandom. And I'm sorry for those followers that do that, where you have like the one character or profile photo of a character you are hyper obsessed with and connected with. You gotta watch more stuff. I'm sorry. You gotta watch more things.
Honestly, like this year, between like Animation View guys and then like my own podcast, Lay Crap, where I find bad movies, like not to dunk on them and like make fun of them, although we do little jabs and just, but to actually appreciate the storytelling. And I feel like all this exposure to media, like even stuff that's like not great, but, and then sometimes in the stuff that's not great, you accidentally find stuff that's good. Like you gotta give stuff a chance, but I've watched probably more this year than I've ever watched in my life.
Well, it was like when Mike and I watched Wish Dragon back in the day. We were like, huh, we don't know how this one's going to go, but let's give it a watch. And then we watch all of like the like Hong Kong action comedy elements that were obviously inspiring the movie Wish Dragon, and how the movie we talked about last time, Chow, was this inspired by Hong Kong like action comedies. And there's also that one really pretty dance sequence in Chow, which was obviously inspired by like real life dancing and such. So it's like with the whole being incurious thing, you gotta go out there, man. You gotta live a little. You gotta explore other cultures and things in life.
Go to museums, like even just going to your downtown, like just explore, take photos, like just find something that makes you live. Like not only is it better for your media intake, you will just be a better human being in general.
Like it's not well, I know it's not rocket science literally, but the way people act like it is bug the ever daylights out of me because of it. It's just like, y'all gotta do better. That at the end of the day, to wrap this up, the animation fandom can be full of amazing people who are super creative and who knows, work in the industry and then make their own creative stuff. But it's also like, we have to take care of these bad takes and bad egg people. And if you are one of those bad eggs who realized they were a bad egg and you got better because of it, cool. That's great.
Personal growth, we love it.
But it's also still like it's going to suck that your actions are going to stick with you forever, which I'm sure sucks for some of those YouTubers who made some of those infamous things happen. I know that's going to suck having that hung around your neck for the rest of your life, but that's on you. Y'all let that happen, and just do better. Just be better people, be good people. It's chaos out there, be kind.
Well said.
Perfect, could not phrase it better myself.
And you know what? I'm glad that we're going to talk about some amazing stuff next time, because we're going to talk about Little Amelie, the winner of Mini Annecy and Animationist Film Awards. And it really does perfectly encapsulate why animation can be so much fun to talk about, and why living life can inspire such an amazing movie. Like I said, it's probably my favorite animated film and probably my favorite movie of the year. Just animation or not. So, until then.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to that. But until next time, Bree, where can everyone find you online?
Well, after this, you might want to be like, oh, this bitch is crazy. But if you wish to find me, you can find me at crazylemur.bsky.social. I'm also on Instagram at lemurs1, where I post cooking, personal life content, and videos and pics of my dog just genuinely being adorable.
And Cameron?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Twitter at camsiview.biz. I have my own website called camsiview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I am a contributor to Media Magpies, your new one-stop shop for pop culture and media discussion and discourse. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camsiview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Renegade Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You need to escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.